You know, when you're watching a disaster movie and the massive ocean liner starts taking on water,
Right, yeah.
there is always that one scene where the passengers are just panicking on the deck and everyone is screaming at the captain.
Oh, absolutely.
It is this totally instinctual, immediate reaction. I mean, the ship is sinking, someone is at the wheel, so obviously it is entirely their fault.
It's a very clean narrative.
Exactly. It's very comforting. We know exactly who the villain is. But if you step into the world of political sociology, that comforting narrative just completely shatters.
Yeah, it really does.
Because what if the passengers were the ones quietly drilling holes in the hull for years just because, it was convenient at the time?
That is the terrifying part.
Right. So today we are taking a deep dive into a highly uncomfortable, honestly, somewhat brutal philosophical text. The question is, when a nation suffers, when a society starts to sink, who is actually holding the drill?
It is a phenomenal question because it forces us to look past the immediate spectacle of a crisis.
Yeah.
Like, we are exploring the incredibly complex and often really invisible relationship between a society, the whole concept of accountability, and the people we elevate to power.
Which is not an easy thing to look at.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And we have to abandon the easy answers to do that.
Yeah.
It requires examining the actual psychological and structural mechanisms that manufacture our leaders.
And I mean, we are really challenging you, the listener, to keep an open, questioning mind as we go through this. Because human nature, well, it demands a scapegoat.
We always want one.
Right. We all want to point at the screen and blame the villain. But today, we are taking a shared journey of discovery here, and we are bravely choosing to look in the mirror instead.
And that journey really begins with our absolute refusal to do exactly that when things go wrong.
Oh, totally.
I mean, the immediate reflex of any citizenry in decline is to just point fingers outward. We blame the presidents.
Always the presidents.
We blame the prime ministers. We blame the wealthy elite, foreign countries, historical grievances, or, rival political factions.
Just anyone standing on a stage, basically.
Right. We point at anyone and everyone standing on a stage.
Mm-hmm.
Human beings have essentially evolved to become absolute experts at looking through windows while remaining entirely incapable of looking into mirrors.
I love that. That window versus mirror dynamic is so fundamental to this text.
It really is the core of it.
Because when we look through a window, we see all the external forces, right? We can observe the flaws of a politician or CEO with just perfect clarity.
Right.
But the mirror requires us to examine our own complicity in the very system that produced them. I mean, a corrupt government or even a full-blown authoritarian regime, it simply cannot survive in a vacuum.
No, it can't.
It physically cannot function without millions of ordinary citizens either actively tolerating that corruption or, passively choosing obedience over courage. Power always flows from the bottom up.
Which represents a massive shift in how we are taught to perceive authority.
Yeah, how so?
Well, we tend to view power as this monolithic weight imposed upon a society from above. But in reality, power is generated by the society itself and then handed upward.
Like we're feeding the machine.
Exactly. Even in the most oppressive systems, a dictator does not personally enforce every single law.
Right, they can't.
They rely on a vast, intricate apparatus of clerks processing paperwork, local police turning a blind eye, judges compromising their ethics, and neighbors just staying quiet.
Just keeping their heads down.
Yeah. A dishonest politician cannot win and cannot govern unless millions of people collectively decide that honesty is just not a prerequisite for their support.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I feel like I need to push back here on behalf of everyone listening.
Go for it.
I hear you, but aren't we sort of letting leaders off the hook by diffusing the blame like this?
I can see why it feels that way.
I mean, the person sitting in the executive office with the military at their command, or the CEO with billions of dollars, obviously has vastly more structural power than an everyday citizen just trying to pay their rent. If a mailroom clerk lies on a time card, they steal $50. If a CEO lies on an earnings report, they wipe out thousands of pensions.
Right. The scale is totally different.
The scale of impact isn't even in the same universe. So by blaming this abstract concept of, society, aren't we giving a massive free pass to the people actually making the catastrophic decisions?
It is a vital distinction to make, and honestly, it is the absolute first place the analytical mind goes when reading this text.
Yeah, it just feels like victim blaming a little bit.
I get that. But acknowledging societal complicity does not absolve leaders of their individual accountability. The source material is very clear on that.
Okay.
The CEO who destroys pensions absolutely must face the consequences of that specific action. But this text raises an important question. Where did that CEO or that dictator or that corrupt official learn their values in the first place?
Right.
We cannot equate the scale of the consequence, but we must trace the origin of the behavior.
I mean, they didn't just drop out of the sky fully formed with a compulsion to embezzle funds.
Precisely. The CEO who wipes out pensions didn't invent that behavior the day they got the corner office.
No.
Every single corrupt official sitting in an office today was once an ordinary citizen walking the streets. Every ruthless dictator was once a child sitting in someone's living room.
That is wild to think about.
They grew up inside a society.
Yeah.
So while we hold the individual accountable for the destruction they cause, we have to interrogate the environment that cultivated, tolerated, and eventually promoted that specific type of person to a position of power.
Which brings us to the underlying science and philosophy of how an environment actually shapes a leader.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting.
We have to talk about the blank slate. Historically, you have philosophers like John Locke arguing for tabula rasa, the idea that we are born as blank slates, with our minds shaped entirely by experience.
Right.
And on the other side, you have someone like Thomas Hobbes, who argued that humans are inherently selfish and brutish. The perspective we are dissecting today leans heavily into the idea that no infant is born corrupt.
No baby comes out of the womb scheming for political power.
Exactly.
Those destructive behaviors, the drive for dominance at the expense of others, they are learned survival strategies. And modern neuroscience actually provides the exact physical mechanism for how that slate gets written on.
Oh, the mirror neurons.
Specifically through the brain's mirror neuron system, yes. Our brains are biologically hardwired for social learning.
So we're just copying machines early on.
Pretty much. Long before a child is capable of conscious critical thought, long before they can evaluate whether an action is morally right or wrong, their subconscious mind is acting as a relentless data scraper.
It makes me think of a child's brain like a raw machine learning algorithm.
That's a great way to put it.
It doesn't have a moral compass yet, right? It
Yeah.
just scrapes the data of its surrounding environment. The mirror neuron system fires both when we perform an action and when we observe someone else performing that same action.
That algorithm is simply trying to figure out how to survive and succeed in its specific environment.
Right.
It is how we learn empathy, sure, but it is also how we absorb the foundational values of our surrounding culture. If that AI model scrapes data showing that lying yields a reward without consequence, it optimizes for deception.
Wow.
If a child grows up watching the adults around them constantly tell small lies to get ahead, their mirror neurons are firing, normalizing that behavior as a completely valid tool.
So it's like we are all marinating in this massive cultural broth, and we are somehow completely shocked when the leaders we scoop out of the pot taste exactly like the broth.
I love that framing. That's exactly it.
Mhm.
Another way the text visualizes it is the dynamic between a gardener and a tree.
Okay, lay it on me.
Imagine you decide to plant poisonous seeds in the dirt. You go out every single day and you water those seeds.
Right.
You make sure they get sunlight. You fiercely protect the soil. And then a few years later, a massive toxic tree grows in the middle of your yard. Are you going to stand there and scream at the tree for being poisonous?
I mean, you can chop the tree down all you want, but you are still the one holding the watering can.
Yeah.
The tree is just doing exactly what it was cultivated to do based on the inputs it received.
And yet, societies have spent centuries inventing incredibly elaborate frameworks to avoid admitting that we hold the watering can.
Oh, for sure.
Historically, we use deeply entrenched belief systems to blind ourselves to this process.
Like the concept of the divine right of kings.
Yes, perfect example.
For centuries, societies framed their leaders as being divinely appointed by a higher power. If you believe the king was placed on the throne by God, then as a citizen, you bear absolutely zero responsibility for the king's tyranny.
You're totally off the hook.
Right. The mechanism of power is conveniently placed outside of human control.
It acts as the ultimate excuse. And even in modern secular societies, we do something similar using biological determinism.
Like saying it's just human nature.
Exactly. We write off widespread corruption as just the inevitable result of inherent human greed. We say, well, power corrupts, it's just human nature.
Right.
Both frameworks, the divine right and biological determinism, they serve the exact same psychological function. They suggest that the situation is fundamentally out of our hands, which prevents us from looking in the mirror at our own cultural broth.
But if we reject those excuses, if we accept that our mirror neurons are just soaking up whatever is around us and that our environment dictates our leadership, how does a society ever break out of a toxic cycle?
What's fascinating here is that our standard reflexive response to a crisis is actually an incomplete demand.
How you mean?
Well, when things go wrong, the immediate public outcry is always, we need better politicians.
Right, vote them out.
But demanding better politicians without changing the underlying culture is like demanding an apple tree to suddenly grow oranges without changing the soil.
Because to break the cycle, you don't just need better politicians, you need better citizens.
Exactly.
Bad citizens will always, without exception, eventually create bad governments.
Yeah.
You cannot have a thriving, honest political class if the foundational soil of the society is deeply corrupt.
The mechanics of societal decline are remarkably universal. If you look across different flags, different languages, different religions, and entirely different eras of human history, you find exactly the same human behavior repeating.
It's a pattern.
A very clear one. When the general populace begins to compromise its own integrity in small ways, the leadership eventually reflects that compromise on a massive scale.
And that leads right into the concept of the bricks of complacency,
Yeah.
which I think is the part of the deep dive that really forces you to examine your own life. Because if better citizens are the only way to get better leaders, we have to look at the incredibly small, mundane actions of everyday people.
It's the micro actions.
Right. We aren't talking about grand treason. We are talking about the tiny compromises.
The source uses the architecture of a prison, which is a brilliant way to understand this. A societal prison isn't built overnight by one grand evil architect who suddenly seizes power.
It's not a movie villain.
No.
Yeah.
It is built brick by tiny brick by the citizens themselves.
Think about your own life. Think about the last time you laughed at a slightly inappropriate joke at a corporate meeting just to keep the peace and avoid making things awkward.
We've all done it.
Right. Think about every bribe paid to a local official to expedite a permit. Every small lie accepted in a marketing campaign because everyone else is doing it.
Or every vote cast out of blind, hostile tribalism rather than actual principle.
Yes, every injustice ignored because it didn't affect your specific neighborhood.
Every single one of those moments is a tiny brick, and one brick on its own seems entirely harmless.
Because you don't see the effect right away.
Exactly. If you tell a small lie to your boss to cover a mistake, society doesn't instantly collapse. The stock market doesn't crash. You don't see the immediate systemic consequence of your action, so your brain assumes there isn't one.
But millions of ordinary people laying down millions of bricks every single day, eventually, you look up and you realize you have built a suffocating prison for yourself.
You really have.
You have constructed an environment where only the ruthless can thrive.
Which brings us to perhaps the most uncomfortable truth we have to face from this text. Societies rarely receive the leaders they deserve immediately.
There's a lag time.
Exactly. Sociological shifts take time to percolate upward, but eventually, usually on a generational delay, they almost always do. The leaders of tomorrow are currently being formed by the specific bricks we are choosing to lay today.
Here's where it gets really interesting, I think, when you understand the immense psychological comfort of the blame game.
Oh, it's so comfortable.
It is. When we point at the leader, when we focus our rage entirely through the window instead of looking in the mirror, it feels deeply, intoxicatingly satisfying.
Because it's easy.
Right. And it feels satisfying because blaming the captain of the sinking ship demands absolutely nothing from us. We don't have to change our daily behavior.
No.
We don't have to speak up in that uncomfortable meeting. We don't have to stop laying those tiny bricks. But looking in the mirror, that demands a total dismantling of our own ego.
True accountability requires acknowledging that every generation is quietly, methodically manufacturing the next one.
Yeah.
We're actively handing them the blueprint and the bricks. If you want to know why a political system is failing, you have to audit the dinner table conversations of the previous decade.
Man. So if we know that we inadvertently build our own societal prisons through daily complacency, where does the actual demolition happen?
That's the big question.
If we want to tear down the prison and rebuild, where does that process start?
Most people instinctively believe that revolutions begin in parliaments, or in congresses, or on the battlefield.
Right, big historical moments.
We are taught that history is shaped by grand speeches in marble rooms, but real, lasting revolutions actually begin inside individual minds.
It feels counterintuitive because it's such a quiet, unglamorous place for a revolution to start.
It really is.
We want the cinematic moment of storming the castle.
The cinematic moment is usually just the final superficial expression of a shift that happened decades earlier.
Oh, wow.
The actual future of civilization isn't decided by who holds the gavel in a government building today. It is decided in millions of homes.
Yeah.
It is decided in how teachers manage classrooms. It is decided in everyday, frustrating conversations between friends, and in the incredibly ordinary decisions made by everyday people when they think nobody is watching.
So, if a society decides it finally wants honest and intelligent leaders, it can't just protest in the streets and demand them.
Protesting might remove a specific individual, but it doesn't change the underlying machinery.
The soil is still the same.
Exactly. If a society wants honest leaders, the culture itself must aggressively practice honesty in its daily economic and social dealings.
Right.
If it wants intelligent leaders who grapple with nuance, the culture must value intelligence and nuance over superficial popularity and outrage-driven entertainment long before demanding it from the government. You literally have to become the thing you are asking for.
Because changing one leader just changes an office. Changing millions of minds, well, that changes history.
You can swap out a corrupt leader tomorrow. But if the societal soil remains unchanged, if the citizens are still watering the poisonous seeds through their own daily ethical compromises, the next leader who grows from that soil will eventually exhibit the exact same rot.
So what does this all mean? Let me try to synthesize this paradigm shift for the listeners.
Go for it.
It's like realizing you can't just fire the CEO of a failing company and expect the entire organization to magically thrive if the actual culture of the company is fundamentally broken from the mailroom to the boardroom.
That's a perfect analogy.
Right. If the employees are still sabotaging each other, cutting corners on safety, and lying to clients to hit quotas, a new CEO isn't going to fix the underlying disease.
No, they won't.
That new CEO is eventually just going to adapt to the toxic culture in order to survive, or they'll be quickly replaced by someone who will. The real question we should be asking isn't who is ruling us. The real question is, what kind of people are we actively becoming?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it leads us to a rather haunting final thought from the source. Civilization is, at its core, nothing more than millions of mirrors reflecting one another. We are just endlessly bouncing our values, our fears, our integrity, and our corruption back and forth between each other.
Millions of mirrors. That is a heavy, heavy image to carry with you. I want to thank you for coming along on this deep dive with us today.
My pleasure.
We know this wasn't a light, breezy exploration. These ideas weigh heavily on the everyday choices you make, from how you behave in traffic to how you handle a dispute with a neighbor. It forces a level of self-awareness that is genuinely exhausting.
It is exhausting, but it's also the only path to true empowerment.
Yeah.
I mean, if we are the ones unknowingly building the prison, we are also the only ones with the actual power to dismantle it. But before we wrap up, there's one final, somewhat provocative thread I want to pull on, something for you to mull over that builds on these concepts, particularly when we examine our modern context.
Lay it on us.
We talked extensively about the brain's mirror neurons, right?
Yes, the data scraper.
And how a child's subconscious acts like a machine learning algorithm, absorbing the values it witnesses in its surrounding culture. We become what we witness.
It's a cultural broth.
Right. But consider how drastically the definition of surrounding culture has changed in the digital age. 50 years ago, your culture was your local neighborhood, your physical classroom, or your town square.
And now?
Today, our culture is a global algorithmic feed.
Oh, wow. Okay, I see where you're going with this. The input data has completely changed.
If civilization is simply millions of mirrors reflecting each other, what happens when those mirrors are no longer passive?
Yeah.
What happens when those mirrors are actively curated by algorithms that are explicitly designed to reflect our absolute most extreme, outraged, and polarizing impulses back at us?
Because the algorithm doesn't care about honesty, justice, or nuance.
Not at all.
It doesn't have a moral compass. It only optimizes for one thing: engagement. And anger is the most engaging emotion we have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the terrifying question becomes, are we, through our daily digital habits, accidentally manufacturing a future generation of leaders who are optimized purely for engagement rather than wisdom?
That is wow.
If our mirror neurons are feeding on a constant curated diet of digital outrage and performative hostility, what kind of poisonous tree is going to grow from that soil a decade from now?
That is genuinely chilling. Because if we are absorbing that digital culture subconsciously, we might be laying bricks for a prison we can't even see yet.
We very well might be.
It makes you realize that every click, every angry comment you leave, every second of attention you give to something polarizing online is a tiny brick in the architecture of tomorrow's leadership. We aren't just helpless passengers screaming at the captain on a sinking ship. We are the ones currently building the ship we are all going to sail on tomorrow.
We hold the drill, and we hold the hammer.
Which leaves us with the only question that actually matters. If society is a mirror, what reflection are you casting back into the world today?